For most of human history, the search for life beyond Earth was little more than a search through silence. Astronomers examined distant stars, studied strange signals, and discovered worlds that seemed promising for a moment, only to find that the evidence was never strong enough. Then the James Webb Space Telescope changed the way scientists could investigate distant worlds. Instead of simply asking whether a planet has water or an atmosphere, researchers can now examine the chemistry of those environments in far greater detail. And as more observations accumulate, an intriguing pattern begins to emerge. Potentially habitable environments may be much more diverse, and perhaps much more common, than scientists once imagined. Some of these possibilities are not even located in distant star systems. They may exist within our own solar system. One particularly fascinating example is Ceres. For years, Ceres was viewed mainly as a large object left behind from the early formation of the solar system. It was scientifically interesting, but it was rarely placed at the center of discussions about possible habitats for life. That picture has become more complicated. Observations of Ceres have revealed salts and hydrated minerals across parts of its surface. These materials provide clues that water once interacted with the rocks beneath the surface. More importantly, scientists have considered the possibility that water may still exist below its outer layers. Imagine an ocean hidden beneath ice and rock, completely separated from the harsh conditions at the surface. Such an environment would be protected from much of the radiation and extreme temperature changes experienced outside. It could also provide the kind of chemical interactions that make certain underground environments interesting in the search for life. Earth gives us an important comparison. Some of the ecosystems found deep beneath our oceans do not depend directly on sunlight. Instead, they are powered by chemical energy associated with activity beneath the seafloor. If similar chemical energy sources exist elsewhere, then sunlight may not be an absolute requirement for life. That possibility dramatically expands the number of environments scientists have to consider. A world does not necessarily need blue skies, warm beaches, or an Earth-like surface to become scientifically interesting. Liquid water, usable energy, suitable chemistry, and long-term stability may be enough to make an environment worth investigating. And that leads to an even stranger possibility. Perhaps some of the most interesting habitats in space are the ones we cannot see directly. Far beyond the familiar planets, astronomers have also been studying distant objects whose movements appear unusual. Their orbits can sometimes provide clues about gravitational influences that are difficult to explain. This has led to theories about undiscovered planets far beyond the orbit of Neptune. One proposed possibility is a distant planet sometimes referred to as Planet 9 or Planet X in different discussions. The important point is that such a world has not been directly confirmed. Instead, the idea comes from unusual orbital patterns and gravitational calculations. If a large planet were actually hiding hundreds of billions of kilometers away, it would receive extremely little sunlight. From such a distance, detecting it directly would be extraordinarily difficult. But gravity leaves traces. A planet does not have to shine brightly to influence other objects. Its mass could alter the paths of smaller bodies, leaving a pattern that astronomers can study. If a distant planet were eventually confirmed, it would remind us that even our own solar system may still contain major discoveries. We often imagine that because humans have mapped the planets and launched spacecraft throughout the solar system, we already understand our cosmic neighborhood. But space is enormous. There may still be worlds whose existence has never been directly observed. And then there are the planets around other stars. One of the most fascinating systems is TRAPPIST-1, where several roughly Earth-sized worlds orbit the same small star. The system immediately attracted attention because of the number of planets packed into such a compact region. What makes TRAPPIST-1 especially important is that several of its planets occupy regions where temperatures could potentially allow water to remain liquid under the right atmospheric conditions. That does not mean these worlds contain life. It means they give scientists multiple natural laboratories for studying how planets develop and how atmospheres behave. Instead of examining one potentially habitable world, astronomers can compare several planets that formed around the same star but followed different evolutionary paths. That comparison could eventually help answer a much bigger question. How unusual was Earth? For a long time, scientists had only one known example of a planet with life: our own. That made it difficult to determine whether Earth's conditions were extremely rare or simply one common outcome of planetary evolution. TRAPPIST-1 provides an opportunity to investigate that question from another angle. If several planets around the same star can develop conditions compatible with liquid water, then habitability may not always be an extraordinary accident. It could emerge naturally when the right. Another world that initially appears completely unsuitable for life is WASP-39b. It is a massive gas giant orbiting extremely close to its star, making its environment far too extreme for anything resembling Earth's surface life. Yet this planet has become extremely valuable for a different reason. Its atmosphere can be studied in remarkable detail. Observations have revealed molecules including carbon dioxide, water vapor, and sulfur-bearing compounds. The importance of WASP-39b is not that it appears habitable. Instead, it demonstrates how powerful modern telescopes have become at analyzing the chemistry of planets that are many light-years away. Think of it as a test case. If scientists can identify individual molecules in the atmosphere of a distant gas giant, then the same techniques can eventually be applied to smaller, cooler worlds. That is where the search for life becomes especially interesting. Scientists are not necessarily looking for an obvious signal saying that life exists. They can instead search for unusual combinations of atmospheric chemicals that might be difficult to maintain without biological activity. WASP-39b therefore acts as a technological demonstration. It shows that distant atmospheres are no longer completely mysterious. Their chemical composition can be investigated, compared, and analyzed. Another intriguing target is Teegarden b. This Earth-sized planet orbits a small red dwarf star and receives an amount of energy that has made it interesting in discussions about potentially habitable environments. The most important factor may be stability. A planet does not simply need the right amount of energy at one particular moment. It may need conditions that remain reasonably stable for extremely long periods. Life requires time. Chemical systems need time to develop. Simple organisms need time to evolve. Complex ecosystems need even longer periods. If a planet experiences catastrophic changes again and again, maintaining life could become extremely difficult. But a relatively calm stellar environment could provide a different kind of opportunity. Instead of constantly battling extreme changes, chemistry could continue developing gradually. That makes planets such as Teegarden b scientifically valuable, even though we currently have no direct evidence that life exists there. The same principle applies to the TOI 700 system. This system contains several planets, including a world located in a region where temperatures could potentially permit liquid water under suitable atmospheric conditions. What makes TOI 700 particularly interesting is how ordinary the system appears. There is no requirement for an exotic scenario. A relatively small star. An Earth-sized planet. A potentially suitable orbit. And enough time for a stable climate to develop. In astronomy, ordinary can be more exciting than spectacular. If planets with these characteristics turn out to be common, then Earth-like environments may not require an extraordinary chain of coincidences. They could simply be one of the natural outcomes of planetary formation. This creates an important comparison between nearby and distant worlds. Proxima b has the advantage of being close to us, but its star is highly active. A planet around a quieter star could be much farther away while potentially offering a more stable environment. That means distance from Earth may not be the most important measurement when evaluating habitability. Eventually, the number of examples could become large enough to change our understanding of how common habitable environments really are. But there is an important distinction. Potential habitability is not the same thing as confirmed life. Scientists have not established that any of these worlds contain living organisms. The evidence tells us that some environments may possess ingredients that are relevant to life. The next step is to determine whether those environments actually produce biological signatures. That is where the future of astronomy becomes especially exciting. As telescopes improve and observations accumulate, researchers may be able to examine smaller planets, colder atmospheres, and increasingly subtle chemical patterns. The search is moving from simply finding planets to understanding them. And eventually, it may move one step further. From understanding their chemistry to determining whether something is actively changing that chemistry. That would be a completely different kind of discovery. Because finding water tells us that an environment may be suitable. Finding a complex atmosphere tells us that chemistry is happening. But finding a chemical pattern that strongly points toward biological activity would take the search to an entirely new level. For now, the universe remains uncertain. But uncertainty is no longer the same as emptiness. Every new observation gives us another piece of the puzzle. And with every piece, the number of places where life